Well, many of you have come to expect a lot of Bible content from me, and today is going to be somewhat different. It's going to be a bit like a Christmas letter you get from a friend or a family to keep you informed of what's going on in the church and what kind of new things will be happening in the new year. Let me begin with a little story that introduces our text. Once upon a time, I was living in Dallas when I was going to seminary, and I had normally came home just before the holidays and would be gone for a few weeks. But I'd bought some grapes, and I thought they were seedless, and they weren't, so I didn't really want to eat them. And I decided to do a science experiment while I was gone, so I crushed them up and put them into a bottle. It was one of those Nalgene hiking bottles, quite strong plastic, but I'm sure many of you see where the story is going already. But so I closed up the lid, put it away, and forgot about it. When I got back, the science experiment worked, kind of. I ended up with wine that was dry, hot, and on the carpet, because the bottle, of course, had split. You can't put fermenting grape juice into containers that cannot stretch or can't handle the pressure. The yeast goes and does its work until the pressure rises and you get a minor explosion. Jesus tells a similar story in Luke chapter 5, verses 36 to 39. So Jesus told them a parable. He's talking to the Pharisees. No one tears a piece from a new garment and puts it on an old garment. If he does, he will tear the new, and the piece from the new will not match the old. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the new wine will burst the skins, and it will be spilled, and the skins will be destroyed. But new wine must be put into fresh wineskins. And no one after drinking old wine desires new, for he says, the old is good. In this parable, Jesus is confronting the Jewish people about himself. The old wineskins are the Jewish religious leaders, and the good and old wine is their old interpretation of the Torah. The Pharisees didn't like that Jesus and his disciples would feast and eat with tax collectors and other undesirable sinners. And Jesus' disciples didn't really do the Sabbath thing like the Pharisees thought it should be done. Who was this Jesus to do things differently? So Jesus was calling himself the new wine, and the only fitting place for it would be new wineskins. Only the disciples that he called out from their various regular professions, like being fishermen and tax collectors, only they would be able to handle the message of Jesus. Old wineskins would simply break. The message of Jesus was new, powerful. It could not be stopped, and those who tried to contain him would break. So Jesus is being ironic when he says, no one after drinking old wine desires new, for he says the old is good. See, Jesus realizes that the Pharisees don't really want any part of his teaching. They don't really want him. They're comfortable where they are. Why would they want to change when everything suits them just fine? The old wine is refined, mellow, subtle. It takes a connoisseur to appreciate it, and it's wasted on everyone else. This is how the Pharisees acted. They would debate minor points of obeying the law and impose harsh rules that only a professional saint could follow. And they would savor the taste of their sweet and self-serving religion. And this is what has happened with Christianity over the last 2,000 years. A lot of us know the good old ways. We know how to obey the Sabbath. We know the rules about tithing, how to act properly in church. And many in church lay these burdens on anyone who might walk through the door. Churches have become old wineskins that can no longer contain the new wine of the work that God has for his people in this brave new world. So it's not surprising we've seen church after church close down. Some have finished the last drop of the old wine, and there's no reason to stay open anymore. Others try to do new things, but they're putting new wine into old wineskins, and they inevitably break. But we don't have to be like that. We can accept the new wine that the Holy Spirit is working in if we're willing to become new wineskins. And that's why we need, as a church, a time of transition. That's why we need to change the way we think about what church is. You see, it takes a lot of time for us to make sense of our world. We spend most of our lives just trying to fit in and understand the way things are. It takes children, 2.5 decades, really, to understand who they are and become part of the world. And so we understand new things in light of our previous experience. That's just the way things work. So we tend to get stuck in the ways we've always done things, because that's what's easy and familiar. Having someone to help move from one way of understanding to another is exactly what the church needs. This church, but not just this one, but many all over our country. And that's what I think I'm here to do. You see, I think churches have a wrong understanding of what interim or transitional ministry is. It's normally understood as covering a time between two permanent pastors, as if church revolved all around who was standing up in front. But that's not what church was ever meant to be about. Paul himself says, who cares whether you follow Paul or Peter or Apollos? It's about Jesus. Everybody follows Jesus. So if you've read the Steeple Chatter, you'll know that the session and I have agreed to a revised contract. As many of you may know, that I was hired on for a period of 1 year, which will be ending April 30th. I'm not going away, but nor are we going to just say the time of transition is over and we're going to move to a state of normalcy. There's no more state of normalcy for the church in North America. Whether we like it or not, that's just the world we live in. So the session and I have agreed to a revised contract that's not based on being here a specific amount of time, but on the achievement of certain goals. Goals that would indicate that the church is in a place where it can thrive in the future. So I want to take this time to inform you of some of the new things that will beginning with the beginning of a new year and what we're hoping to achieve through them. In a way, how can we become new wineskins? Well, the first new beginning that many of you already know about, we started a number of months ago, was our vision team. Now, we didn't get a chance to meet this December, how busy December is, but we'll be meeting next week to discuss what is church about and who is church for and how are we doing with that. The vision team is here to think about where we are and where we want to be, and they'll keep informing all of us about their progress. The second new beginning has to do with our leadership at the church. Some of you know that I've been talking about this for a few times. For a long time, being an elder meant being on the board of a nonprofit organization or a service group, much like any other, making sure the business affairs were taken care of. Many people were stuck in jobs that they didn't really want and don't feel particularly qualified to do. When people have jobs that they accept reluctantly and aren't qualified for, they usually don't perform well. So we've decided to make a fresh start, a clean slate for our leadership in church. I've asked our current elders to consider their gifts and how they might best be used. There's nothing sacred about the way we've done it in the past. I told them about the Quakers who used to, I don't know if they still do, but they used to have circular churches. There was no preacher. They would all just get together with no plan and wait for something to happen. So church can be done with no planning. And it's important to understand that what we do because we want to, not because we have to. So I want to be sure that people in leadership are well-trained, motivated, and happy with the responsibilities they have. They're not there to do the work of the church. That's not what being an elder is about, or a deacon for that matter. Elders are there to be responsible, to make sure things happen, not necessarily to do them. The work of ministry is for all of God's people, not for a special elite few, not for a priesthood or specially elected people. And so this means that all of you can be part of the life of the church, and that our elders may not do quite as much as they used to in order to let all of you do things as well. And so we'll reform the groups and think strategically about how we'll do ministry teams and how to get people involved in doing things they want to do. And if being an elder is sounding attractive to you, which some of you I hope it is, then please come and talk to me more about that. Now, the third new beginning is a very important one, and I've talked briefly about it before, and that's having a discipleship program. When Jesus tells us to believe in him, he doesn't just mean that we agree with facts about him or can recite the creeds. Believing in Jesus means putting our trust in him and following him. The word believe actually means to put your trust in. And as we all know, to trust someone, you have to know them, have experience with them, learn to rely on them. And if we're going to believe in Jesus, that's what we must do, is trust him. Now, Jesus calls all of us to be his disciples, to be people who daily take up our cross with him. And so to help us all do that, and I can't say I'm an expert in it by any means, in January we'll be starting our first discipleship group. This will be made up of people who have already expressed some interest in it. Now, this dozen or so people will meet every week or so to discuss and study what discipleship means for us, for you and me in our own lives. And then we'll go out together into the community. The discipleship groups will do mission together because that's what being a disciple is. Jesus sent his disciples out. Now, that doesn't mean we'll do it just as the early church did, going street preaching, those kinds of things, although if anyone wants to, they're more than welcome to. But they could regularly help out at a local ministry in order to know the staff, build relationships with the clients. We have a large number of homeless people in this town that don't need clothing necessarily. Many of them have it. They don't necessarily need money. What they need are friends. They need people who are interested in them. Other groups might meet in a cafe, a restaurant, or even a bar, where they'll get to know the staff and the regulars. Jesus hung out with people that the Pharisees would not be seen with. Their old wineskins could not contain the sinners. But that's who Jesus went out to find. Jesus called Matthew, also known as Levi, who was a tax collector, in those days a not very pleasant fellow. So part of learning to follow Jesus means having the maturity to go outside of ourselves, to make friends with those we might not otherwise get to know at all. The first discipleship group will then meet for a few months, and we'll all learn together and try new things together. From there, it will break up into other groups, and I hope that many of you would look forward to be part of those groups that this first group of people will lead. And Pastor Lois will help going around helping out where she's needed. Another new thing we're beginning is a time of liturgical prayer. As I said at the beginning, I think too often prayer is about, we only think about the needs we have, immediate needs, instead of laying all of our endeavors before God, things that maybe don't even have anything to do with the life of the church. So we're going to start a new time of liturgical prayer on Thursdays at noon. It'll be a half-hour service, and it will be a wonderful time to come and pray together. As far as I know, there aren't any churches that do this in town. You see, most people think that worship is just music. Music is a good part of worship, but to an ancient person, the first thing they would have thought of by the word worship would mean sacrifice. Prayer is a big part of worship. It teaches us to live our lives as part of God's people, not by ourselves. It teaches us to look after one another, to be God's hands and feet in the world. This group begins on January 15th, so in our chapel just over there. So if you want to come during your lunch break, that would be good. Now, another part of being new wineskins is looking after the next generation and really thinking about the next generation. How do they see the world? How can we as grown-ups and mature people look after them? How can we use our experience to help them in their lives? So January will be a month where we concentrate on our children and our young people. It's going to be a great place to begin to think about what it means to follow Jesus. You see, I think part of the reason, not just our church, but many churches all across our nation don't have younger people, is because they didn't see that faith was that important to their parents. It was an obligation, but it didn't really impact their day-to-day lives. Research has shown that one of the most crucial things that youth need to keep their faith, the faith that they have grown up with as children, is the witness of family members and people at church who are committed to their faith. We must not only teach young people about the faith, but we have to live it out for them to see. So also in January, we're going to have the children and the youth are going to redecorate their spaces, make it their own. And our volunteers and teachers will have a training day on Saturday, the 17th of January. My good friend Danny Shaw and his wife Hannah, Danny's the director of children's ministries at First Pres in the Springs, they're going to come down and train us to be excellent in all that we do with our kids. We'll also be starting a new Sunday school curriculum at the end of January. One that can integrate all of us so that children are learning the same things we are, learning that the Bible is a big story and how they fit into that. Now, you may not have considered working with kids. You don't have to be a Sunday school teacher. But I do bet that many of you have good stories. You've been through a lot of challenges in life. You've seen a lot of things and experienced a lot. You probably have stories of how God has been faithful to you that you could share with our young people. So I'd want to encourage you, especially some of our men, since men don't tend to help out with youth as much, to come to our training day and then come now and again. You don't have to come all the time or commit to a schedule. Just come sometimes and get to know our children and youth and share stories with them and build those relationships. So we'll be kicking off our new program January 25th for our children and youth. Now, another part of becoming new wineskins, I think, is not doing religion the way that it's always been done, not doing things because we have to or obeying the forms that need to be followed, but doing things that we're good at. By giving our gifts, that's what, giving our talents to God is using things we're good at for God and His kingdom. Now, my passion is theology and academics, as many of you probably know from my sermons. I don't have a lot of funny stories. But being the lead pastor means I don't get a bunch of time to develop classes to teach. Well, I've been making friends with some of the local pastors in other churches in our town, and I'm excited to be teaming up with Alex Ackerman of the Vineyard Church. We're going to be teaching an 11-week class on Wednesday evenings. We'll be working through the book of Genesis. So this is a larger group class that will break into small groups for discussion. Now, Alex has done all the hard work, and I just get to show up and say my 2 cents about it. But it'll be a great time if you're interested in knowing, if you have any questions about Genesis, such an important book. How does it fit in with the rest of the Bible? What about creation and all these things about science and the Bible? Come to that class, and it'll be at the Vineyard. I think there will be a sign-up sheet in the narthex. And hopefully we can build more relationships like this. I've been talking also with the Ministers Alliance about these kind of relationships we can build. And, the Pharisees and Christians for a long time have been savoring, as I said, savoring the old wine with the subtleties and the refinement. But it's not very welcoming, and we don't really have the luxury to do that anymore. In many ways, the old wine is running out. And so we need to make new wine. And for that, we don't have the luxury to do it all by ourselves. So teaming up with other churches is something I look forward to doing a lot more of. And on that note, we're also going to be teaming up with the Vineyard's high school youth group. So I'm going to teach a couple of their sessions in January, and our high schoolers will go over there, so they get a chance to meet other Christian youth in our town, get to know them and have fun with them, hopefully build relationships beyond our walls. And we'll be having a time there, kind of a trial period for a big question group, especially for kids, but for young people and others, people who have hard questions about faith, that they can come in a free atmosphere and ask those things. Well, I haven't even mentioned the half of it, probably, but that's enough for now. Perhaps you've noticed that only a few of the things I mentioned have anything to do with Sunday morning. Because doing church isn't just about the performance that we do Sunday morning. It's about taking the new wine of the good news of Jesus Christ to people who are thirsty. But before we go out from here, we need to learn what it means to follow Jesus. In many ways, we have to relearn. As the old wine runs out, we have to develop a taste for the new wine, which is maybe a bit more bitter, maybe the flavors are more powerful and odd and not well mixed, but that's the way the world is outside of the walls. Before we go out from there, we need to learn what it means to follow Jesus, so we know what the wine we're giving out is, what it means to be a disciple. You see, we naturally talk about the things we care about. If being a Christian is important, if loving each other as Christ loves us is something that's real to us, then it doesn't take any hard work to share that with each other. Putting new wine into old wineskins will cause them to burst, but it's our choice of what to do. It's easy and natural to stick with the old, enjoy the finer aspects of being a church connoisseur, but ultimately that makes church all about us. And that proves our own immaturity. Let us join together to become deeper disciples of Jesus, and so be full of the love of Christ that we cannot help but share it with others. Amen? Amen. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for sending Jesus at Christmas time to be something new, radically new in the world, a new way of doing things, and yet not so different from the old. You've taught us that you've given us a big story in the Bible, a story that we get to be part of. So give us the knowledge and wisdom to know how to live that story in our own lives, and give us the courage to invite others into that story. In Jesus' name.